Hello students, and today we're going to look at the third section of our unit, which is on properties of real numbers. So your learning objective for today, you want to be able to identify and use properties of real numbers. Now, there are several properties that we talk about, and these are relationships that are always true for real numbers. So we're going to use these to rewrite and compare expressions pretty much. So here's the properties. I gave you this sticker in class, so please make sure you find it. It should be somewhere. And then go ahead and paste it into your notebook right now. And we're going to fill out each column and row in this. So very first thing we're going to take a look at, we're going to look at the commutative property. Commutative property is pretty cool. What it allows you to do is basically you're going to add two numbers together. Let's call those numbers A and B, okay? And then I can add B and A together, and I'm going to get the same answer. You guys have done this before. It's actually not too uncommon. Multiplication then would be A times B equals B times A. You guys have seen these before. You just never knew they actually had a word for them. So here's some examples that if you need to write down, go ahead. If you don't, then you don't need to. So 18 plus 54 is the same as 54 plus 18. Same thing as 12 times a half equals a half times 12. Times 12, excuse me. That is the same thing. That does not matter whichever way I write it. What about the associative property? Well, the associative property is how we associate the numbers. So I'm going to go A plus parentheses B plus C. So I'm associating B plus C together because I'm putting it in parentheses. But I could also, I could also put parentheses around A and B and then just add C on. That's actually the same answer as the other side. Same for multiplication. That's the same as, you're going to see that as A times B times C, and that is equal to A times B times C. Anything like that, you're going to see it like that. Oh, did I not write over here? A plus B, oh yeah, I did. So some examples of that. So 23 plus 9, put that in parentheses first, plus 4. Or I can go 23 plus 9 plus 4. Something like that. Or I can go 7 times 9 first, and then multiply by 10. Or do 9 times 10, and then multiply by 7. I'll get the same answer. Let's take a look at the identity property. Now, the identity property is a little different. You probably have never seen it, but you kind of know it in your head. The identity property for addition basically means I'm going to get myself back out. So if I do A plus something, I want A. So what can I add to A to just get itself back out? I can add 0, right? So A plus 0 equals A. Well, what can I do for multiplication? A times what will give me just A again. So A times a number. What number is going to give me that? Just 1, right? So we're going to call 0 the identity of addition. And 1 is the identity of multiplication. So that basically means that when I add or multiply by those numbers, I get the same answer. So 3 plus 0 equals 3, 67 times 1 equals 67. Not too hard, right? You've known about those for a while. You just never knew they actually had a name for them. Now, let's take a look at the inverse property. The inverse property is basically, I need to get identity at the end, which in addition's case is 0. So what can I add to A to get 0? I can add the opposite of A, right? So I can add negative A. Right? A minus A, that's 0, right? If I had 3 and I take away 3, I get 0. Same thing for multiplication. I need to get the identity. So A times what will give me 1? Well, I can actually do 1 over A, right? Because that would be A over A, which is just 1. So my identity properties, or my inverse properties, look like that. So 3 plus negative 3 is just 0. And 4 over the reciprocal of 4, which is 1/4, equals just 1. Those are pretty easy. You just got to pay attention to which one is which. The distributive property. A lot of people like to call this the rainbow effect. So this is A times the quantity B plus C. And technically that's AB plus AC. A lot of people have seen that before. So here's an example. I would have 3 outside parentheses and then 5 plus 6 inside. So I can take that 3 and distribute it to the 5 and to the 6. Now, normally you're not going to use it with a 3, but you're probably going to see an X in there and then you're going to distribute it. And that's usually when you're going to use the distributive property. So let's take a look. What about these properties? Which one was it? So let's look at our handy dandy chart. I have 5 plus 1 equals 1 plus 5. So which one allows me to take the numbers and commute or move them around? Well, the commutative property, of course. So this is the commutative property of, and notice how it's addition. So I gotta put of addition. Gotta be nice and fancy, lots and lots of, it's a big word, big statement, but gotta make sure you have it all. And then 7 times 1/7. So which one, I get 1. So which one looks like that? If we look in our diagram here, that's the inverse property. So I'm going to write inverse property, I'm just going to put prop, you can too, of multiplication, because that's multiplication only. Okay. 4 plus 9 plus 3, or 4 plus 9 plus 3. Notice how the numbers, or the parentheses, moved around. The numbers didn't move, but the parentheses did. So I'm associating different numbers with each other, which means that is the associative property of addition. Okay. What about 5 plus 0 equals 5? Which one did I add 0 to and then I get the number back out? That looks like, if I look on my diagram here, that's the identity property. And then, whoops, that's of addition. So I gotta make sure I write addition in there. Addition, identity property of addition. Let's look down there. What do I got there? I have 5 times 7 in parentheses times 2, and then 7 times 5 times 2. Notice how my parentheses didn't move. So this can't be associative, because I would have to group different numbers. What actually did happen? Yeah, I moved the 7 and the 5 around. Notice how it became 5 times 7, and then I made it 7 times 5. So I commuted the numbers. So this is actually the commutative property of multiplication. So don't assume that since you have parentheses, it's associative, because sometimes it might not be. Okay, so always make sure you pay attention to what is what. And that's the end of this video. This is Miss Marsh signing off.